As I've told you guys before, when it comes to my workouts, I'm a big believer in compound movements. Movements that require the coordination between a lot of muscles, like deadlifts like I showed you in my last video. And one of the biggest changes over the past year and a half to my workouts has been the addition of what's called the overhead squat, which is one of the most effective, most beneficial, and most difficult movements that you can do. And I can guarantee you that if you're not doing them right now and you start doing them, you'll see gains in your back squat, deadlift, and other similar exercises. And for me, I'd even say that it's one of the reasons my vertical has gone up over the past year.
Yes!
There you go. The overhead squat requires great balance, incredible flexibility, and a powerful core. And it's also very, very quick to point out any deficiency or weaknesses that you might have, which is what makes it such a great exercise to do, because it'll immediately point out to you what your deficiencies are so that you can find them and work on them. But now, before I start, one word on safety. The overhead squat is one of the most potentially dangerous exercises that you can do. And if you're not careful, you can very easily injure yourself or somebody nearby. So I know I always tell you guys this, but for this exercise, it's particularly important that you check your ego at the door and start light. I say it again, start light. Like for me, when I first started overhead squatting, I was using just the bar, 45 pounds, and even that was still probably a little too much for me. And this was when I had a close to 300-pound back squat. It might even be smart for you guys to start learning how to do this exercise with a big towel or a PVC pipe, or what we're using here, which are elastic bands, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And the second most important safety tip is to make sure you do the exercise in a safe place. Try to do it somewhere in the open, far away from any obstacles or people, or if you want to, you can also do it in the cage, and I'll show you guys how to set that up correctly. And the most important thing along with that is if you're about to drop the weight, don't fight it. At some point during overhead squatting, you will lose the weight or lose your balance. It's inevitable with this exercise. And when that happens, make sure that you do not fight the weight. Drop it and get away from it as fast as you can. Trying to keep the weight up and fighting it while you're losing your balance is the fastest way to get injured doing this exercise. So you're gonna start by warming up. Now that sounds obvious, but shoulder flexibility is incredibly important. So start by warming up your shoulders, your hips, and your wrists. Elastic bands are particularly good for this, for doing overhead shoulder stretches. And they're also really good for working on your overhead squat form, amongst other things. I'm gonna start using bands some more in my videos, so I've provided a link below. You guys can check it out and get some bands if you need to. Start with your feet shoulder width apart, exactly as in a back squat, and put your hands wide. I like them all the way out to the edge of the edges. Make sure you pull outwards with your hands as if you're trying to pull the bar apart in the middle. During the lift, and especially if you start to lose stability, pull the bar apart and it'll help you maintain core stability. And it's also why practicing this movement with elastic bands are so good, because the elasticity of the band reminds you to pull it apart while you're squatting. Now, if you're working out in the open, the easiest way to get the bar up is to start by deadlifting it up and then cleaning it up, pressing it over your head into a back squat position. Get your hands into the right position and then press it up into the overhead squat position. And when you're done, you can just lower the weight back down, or if you're lucky enough to go to a gym that doesn't care, you can drop it from the overhead squat position. The other way, which is what I prefer, is if you set up the squat rack as if you're doing back squats, and you set the safety bars just below the lowest point of your overhead squat, then you can pick the weight up as if you're doing a back squat, get your hands in the right position, and then jerk it up or press it up into the overhead squat position. That way, at the end of my set, or if I fail and I can't get the weight up, I can always just set the bar down gently on the safety bars and get out from underneath. So now, with body positioning aside, the form of an overhead squat is actually exactly the same as the form of a back squat, with the only obvious difference being the weight is now over your head instead of on your back. Your weight is still flat on your feet, you still drive through your heels, your hips still go back, and you still keep your chest up. Head up, everything is still the same. Now, before with the back squat, the bar, your shoulders, and the middle of your foot are aligned and exactly split the distance from your hips to your knees. With your back straight, this almost forms a number 4 figure. With the overhead squat, the positioning is still the same. The bar, your shoulders, and the middle of your foot are still aligned, and the number 4 figure is still there. Except now, as your torso naturally comes forward for the squat, your arms will have to naturally rotate a little bit backwards to keep the bar straight over your shoulders in the middle of your foot. And this is the part that requires a lot of flexibility. To keep your chest up and your shoulders slightly behind your head at the bottom is very unnerving and a little scary. And so to keep that positioning, remember, chest up, hips back, pull the bar apart over your head. Now, as far as how many to do, when to do them, and how heavy to go, always do overhead squats when you're fresh and at the beginning of your workout, since it's so intensive and such a taxing exercise. And as far as weight to use, push yourself and be careful. I promise if you start light in the beginning, you will see increases. Start light, work your way up, and do them before your front squat and back squat workout. Try the bands, use a towel, or just the bar, and remember, work on the flexibility first. And the gains you see to everything else will be amazing. So go ahead and try it, let me know how it goes. I read the comments, and I apologize if this video is a little bit longer than normal. And if you guys have any suggestions or anything else, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys soon. Thanks.